Just coming up to 7:20, and the environmental regulator SEPA has said it's seeking a prosecution following 6 days of flaring at the Mossmorran chemical works in Fife. It says investigations into the flaring at the ExxonMobil site last year have now concluded. Well, let's talk to our environment correspondent, Kevin Keane. Kevin, how unusual is this?
Well, Laura, I think it's fair to say that this is a very unusual step for the regulator to take. They tend to try to kind of work proactively with companies to bring about improvements when there are incidents that happened or if there are issues that seem to mean that they can't meet the terms of their environmental licences. And by and large, that seems to be a tactic that plays pretty well for them. That seems to be the most fruitful way they find of doing this. But I think on this occasion, it seems to suggest that they've kind of run out of options with ExxonMobil in particular, although they say that they are continuing to work with them and they've been involved in an improvement project as well over the course of the last year. So they've completed their investigation now into this incident. The incident itself happened in April last year, so it's taken about a year, and they're about to submit a report, they say, to the Crown Office. Now, the flaring itself went on for 6 days. It caused considerable upset in local communities when it happened. Many people there were saying that they couldn't sleep while it was happening because of the noise from the flaring, from the big elevated stack, the light pollution, of course, because you get that massive flame that can be seen for miles around, often as far as places like Edinburgh, and then the vibrations that are caused from it as well. And in fact, SEPA said that it received more than 900 complaints because of this one incident alone.
And the incident last April, it wasn't an isolated incident, was it?
No, absolutely not. In fact, it happened just as SEPA was concluding and publishing the details of an investigation into a flaring incident the previous April in 2018. Now, that previous one had lasted even longer. It had lasted for 7 days in total. And at the time, the regulator said that it had been preventable and unacceptable. And so they issued ExxonMobil and Shell, who share the same site with them, with final warning letters, and then just a few weeks later it happened again. So even then it wasn't unusual. Since then there have been a series of similar unplanned events, but nothing really on this kind of scale, and some people in the community have been saying, and they've been repeating today, their plea, saying that this is the point at which this facility should be shut down. It's reached the end of its life, and it really needs to go.
So what happens now?
Well, it's now in the hands of the Crown Office, or it will be once this report has been submitted. In England, the environmental regulator themselves has the power to bring about prosecutions, but that's not the case in Scotland. It has to be done through the Crown Office and the Procurator, Fiscal. So it's entirely in their hands whether or not to proceed with a prosecution based on the evidence that's being submitted to them. They could bring charges, or they could just decide to take no further action, but it will take, and it usually does take, some considerable time for prosecutors to make a decision on something like this, so it's not likely to happen anytime soon.
And what's the company saying?
Well, they're saying very little about it just now, other than that they've not yet been informed, they say, of this latest development, although SEPA insists that they have. They say that they are and very much do abide by local rules, laws, regulations, wherever in the world they operate. And it is worth pointing out that throughout the period of last year, a good chunk of it, many months of it, the facility itself was shut down, and assessments were being taken during that time on improvements that could be done to try to resolve this issue. ExxonMobil has said it's committed to spending £140 million over the next few years to try to improve it, and flaring itself is something that does have to be able to happen. It's a safety mechanism to burn off excess gas when necessary. It's just the regularity that's the cause for concern.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. That's our environment correspondent, Kevin Keane.
7:24 is the time, and returning to the airwaves tomorrow lunchtime, the good, the bad and the unexpected.